haven't filmed a video in years. This feels so unnatural. All right. Am I really prepared to put this on the internet? I guess we're doing this. Okay. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. As you can tell by the title of this video, I am sharing something today that is quite personal, but also something that I am extremely passionate about, which is why I wanted to share my story today in hopes that it may help some of you watching. As the title says, this video is about egg retrieval, IVF, egg freezing, and why I made the decision to freeze my eggs at 28 years old. So if I'm looking down throughout this video, it's because I have my notes here as to what I want to talk about today to make sure that I stay on track and keep this video as informative and concise as possible. So I wanted to make this video to really raise awareness about sort of IVF and freezing eggs by choice in your 20s. And I think that there are a lot of videos out there, of course, about sort of IVF, with couples going through IVF, and my video today is really more so about egg freezing and why I made the decision to freeze my eggs proactively, and that's really what today's video is going to be about. There are a lot of videos out there about sort of couples undergoing IVF and really generating awareness that way. But I found when I was looking for videos to watch on YouTube, there were some about egg freezing, but not a lot. But there were definitely some. And so my experience is really to share with you all sort of my journey as a single woman, freezing my eggs proactively and why I chose to do that. And so for today's video, if I'm looking down, I have notes here that I've made so that I can keep this video as informative as possible for you all and concise. And so as I mentioned, I really just want to help generate awareness and share my story. There were some videos that I watched on YouTube that really helped educate and inform me throughout my process. And so I'm really hoping that this video can help some of you. And I really want to normalize talking about this topic, as I think that it is something that is still a bit taboo to talk about. You sort of hear women joking about sort of freezing eggs and how women have expiry dates and all these things, but I think that we really need to normalize this conversation more. And I would love in the next sort of 5 to 10 years to have egg freezing and diagnostic testing be as normalized as going to get your teeth cleaned at the dentist. I think that would be really amazing. I think that the IVF world has come a long way over the years, and I just really can't wait to see where it is in 5 to 10 years with women having sort of options and knowing what's sort of going on in their bodies. With that, this video again is my personal story. I am not a doctor. I want to really emphasize that this is my personal story. So by no means am I giving medical advice. You really need to make the decision that's best for you by speaking with your doctors. This is really just my story and my journey, and that everybody's different. So again, what I chose for me may not be what somebody would like to choose for themselves. If there's questions people have, like, I'm happy to help in any way that I can, but ultimately I'm not a doctor. This is just my stories. With that, I am going to divide up the video sort of into 3 parts today. The first is just about sort of the research and testing and fact gathering phase of my journey, as well as associated costs. The second section is really just about the injections, the injection process, the retrieval day and what that looked like, as well as my recovery. And the last section are the top 10 things that I wish I knew before going into this procedure, or process, I guess I should say. So with that, I'm going to jump into the first part of the video. So the first part is really about how I sort of got to making the decision that I wanted to freeze my eggs. And so it really started back in sort of 2019-ish, where I started hearing about more and more women having fertility issues. These were women that I may not have necessarily known personally, but through women I follow on YouTube and through Instagram, who were in their early 30s that were having a hard time conceiving. And they were quite surprised that they were having a hard time conceiving, as there were never really any red flags in terms of their health and their body that led them to believe that they would have an issue conceiving. And many of these women spoke about their sort of ovarian reserve and egg counts, and how there's testing that can be done to actually determine what your baseline is, or your ovarian reserve. And I was fascinated to learn of this, because I had never heard of this before. And the fact that there's testing out there that exists that's non-invasive, I should mention, the testing really is blood work, and it's very sort of easy to get this blood work done to have a better understanding of your ovarian reserve and what that looks like, and whether you are at a normal level for your age group, or you're higher or lower. And understandably, if you are on the lower side for your age group, that may be something that you can speak with your doctor about to see if you're concerned. So unfortunately, a lot of women don't necessarily realize that they have a lower egg count until they're trying to conceive and having issues. And if they had known that they had had a lower count sooner, they maybe would have made some different decisions in terms of their family planning. So I was blown away to learn about this, and also a bit disappointed that I hadn't learned about it sooner and that it's not spoken about more. It's not something that you learn about in school, or that's really commonly talked about with family doctors, at least in my experience and speaking with people that I know. And so it kind of led me to want to do testing to really better understand what was happening inside of my body, and if there was something that I should be concerned about in terms of planning a family in my near future. And so with that, I will now speak about sort of the process from start to finish as to how this all came to be. So really the first step is going to your family doctor for a referral to a fertility clinic. And again, I just want to preface as a disclaimer, like, this is my personal experience, so it may differ depending on where you are in the world. I will say that I'm in Ontario, Canada, so this is my experience, but I know that it varies from sort of country to country, city to city, state to state, or province to province. So just keep that in mind. But my sort of whole thing from start to finish, from when I asked for a referral to a fertility clinic to when I actually did my egg retrieval, was about 9 months. So it is like it can be quite a process. So I had requested for a referral to a fertility clinic by my family doctor, and it took me about 4 months. 3 to 4 months. I'm just looking down at my notes. Pretty much 4 months actually to get my initial appointment at the fertility center. I researched a few different fertility centers. I know some of you watching may be wondering, well, how did you decide what fertility clinic to go to? My family doctor obviously had a few recommendations, but ultimately it was my decision as to where I wanted to go. And so I did a lot of research online. I'm very fortunate to have family that has a bit of a healthcare background to kind of help me sort of understand different doctors' credentials and their backgrounds and where they studied and where they practiced. And so that definitely helped. My family doctor had mentioned to not look at Google reviews, as it isn't necessarily an accurate reflection of a fertility center. Like, Google reviews are great. I use them for many, many things, but she had just mentioned that maybe don't really rely heavily on Google reviews for something like choosing a fertility center. So do your research. If you know people, you can sort of ask around. But I landed on a clinic that I felt pretty good about, and it took about 4 months to get into that clinic. But then once you're in, the ball rolls pretty quickly. So it was about a 4-month wait where I had sort of my first consult to talk about testing and coming in for tests. So like I mentioned, there's sort of blood work testing, and also ultrasounds that can be done. So that's sort of the diagnostic testing package to sort of look at your ovaries and your fallopian tubes, your uterus, just to make sure that everything is okay. And of course, the blood work will measure sort of your ovarian reserve. That testing is a couple $100. I don't want to really speak to whether or not that's covered. It will vary depending on where you are. So that's some research for you to do on your own. I was very fortunate to have insurance that did cover that. But it is a couple $100. It's not thousands. For the diagnostic testing, it's only a couple $100. And so from that testing, you can really better understand how things are looking, if you are like in a good place to not need to conceive right away. If you're wondering if you have more time, if you have time on your side or not, that testing can really help you determine that. And if there are any reasons to be concerned, then you can speak with your doctor to really discuss next steps. So for me personally, I was very fortunate that nothing did come back to be concerned about, which I am extremely, extremely grateful for. I was so happy to hear that, and that really gave me peace of mind. And so really from that point, I was given two options. The first was to either just sort of sit tight. For a 28-year-old, my levels were all really great. Things were looking really good. And my doctor really wasn't too concerned about me needing to proactively freeze my eggs in that moment. However, if I wanted to come back when I was sort of 32, 33, 31, 32, 33, I guess it varies. Again, it varies from person to person. So please take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. If I wanted to come back in a few years' time to sort of reassess, if I still was not in a position yet to start a family, discuss what my options would be. So that was the first option. Or the second option was to move forward and do egg freezing proactively on my own terms. So for me, I had done a lot of thinking. I kind of went back and forth, but really in my gut was telling me to go for it and to do it. And there were a couple reasons for that. And everybody is going to have a different sort of thought process when it comes to this. But for me personally, at 28 years old, I still was not in a serious relationship. And I knew that there was likely no way that I was going to be ready to start a family by the time I was 33. That's something really personal that I can't even believe I'm putting out here on the internet for people to watch. But I just knew in my gut that there was no way that I would likely be starting a family by the time I was 32, 33. And that was the timing that my fertility doctor had recommended that I return to do egg freezing if I still was not at a point in my life where I was ready to start a family. Hi there, future me, just hopping in here as I'm editing this video. I just wanted to add in a quick note to clarify that by no means am I implying that you cannot conceive a child on your own after the age of 33. And I'm also not implying that you cannot freeze your eggs after the age of 33. Of course, you can still freeze your eggs into your 30s. I am just sort of speaking from the guidance that I was given, that it's ideal if you want to be freezing your eggs, doing it before you sort of approach the 34 to 35 age is more ideal in terms of what science has shown for success rates. But of course, women can absolutely still freeze their eggs into their 30s. It varies per person, so speak with your doctor on what their thoughts are. I'm just speaking to what would be an ideal time if you're already like proactively thinking about it and wanting to do it. It would be ideal to do it before you sort of approach your mid to late 30s. So I just wanted to add in that little note there. And that also, of course, you can still conceive naturally well into your 30s. Women do it every day. So I just wanted to add in that little note just so nobody is sort of misinterpreting what I'm saying with the age window. So with that, we will pop back to the video. Thank you. And so I was extremely fortunate to have insurance that covered my egg retrieval process, including the medications. So I was extremely, extremely, extremely lucky. And that was definitely a factor in my decision, which kind of leads me into the cost of all of this, because I was not familiar. There are a lot of Americans on YouTube that speak to their stories, but obviously in every country it's a little bit different. So again, for me in Ontario, Canada, the procedure for the egg retrieval itself is just over $10,000. My meds can range from like $3,000 to $5,000. That was sort of the range that I was given before even pursuing, like deciding I wanted to do this. Again, your medication costs will vary because every woman is given different meds, or the same meds but different doses. Some women need to take meds for longer than other women, so the med costs are going to vary, but you can expect sort of around $3,000 to $5,000 for meds. I think I was about in the middle of that. And then there's also an annual storage fee, which again, these are all things that these are just not talked about unless you know somebody that's really gone through it from start to finish. A lot of women don't know about these things, so that's why I want to make this video. The annual storage fees can be around like $400 or $500. Again, don't quote me on this because I'm sure it varies from clinic to clinic depending on where you are, but that was the cost that I was given, was about $400 to $500 a year for egg storage after your retrieval. So all costs to take into consideration. This is just for egg retrieval, so I'm not going into sort of IVF with sort of the egg fertilization and the egg transfer and all of that. My journey really just stops at the egg retrieval and egg freezing. So those are what the costs are for all of that. So it's significant. Like I was probably looking at about $14,000, just under $14,000. And that is obviously a very large chunk of change. And it's something that I was speaking with my fertility doctor about, that unfortunately in Canada, it's quite rare for women to have insurance that cover these sort of treatments. And I'm really hoping that as time goes on, this is something that is more normalized. Again, like going to your family doctor for an annual physical, or for going to the dentist for your teeth cleaning. I really think that companies need to step it up, or the government needs to step in some way and help with these costs, because fertility treatments are extremely, extremely costly. And I am extremely grateful that I had the option to do this, because there are so many women, men, couples that just don't have this option because their financial situation, which is just, it's so not right in my opinion. I was extremely lucky to have the insurance, and so with that, I had made the decision that I was going to move forward and freeze my eggs while everything was good, so that I could freeze them on my own terms, in sort of a stress-free environment, not stressing that something was wrong with my body, or not stressing that I was approaching 40 and still not ready to start a family yet. So I really just wanted to do it on my own terms. And so that's why I decided to really just take the plunge and do the egg retrieval. The whole process took sort of several months between you doing tests, and a lot of it obviously is based on your period. So depending on when your appointment is, if you've just missed your last period, then you have to wait for your next one. So it can be sort of many months, but like I said, once you get into the clinic, there isn't really any more waiting. I just had to wait that 4-ish months to get in after my referral. And then once I was in, it was pretty much steady sort of diagnostic testing, follow-up phone calls, more appointments, and we were ready to start sort of injections and retrievals all within about a 3-ish, 4-ish month span. So I hope that helps lay out sort of the process. And really, if you're not interested in hearing more about egg retrieval, then you can kind of click off of the video now, as I really just wanted to sort of cover the fat gathering part at the beginning for those of you that are interested in learning sort of about diagnostic testing and what your options are there if you're not interested in pursuing actual egg retrieval or egg freezing. Then you can sort of click off now, and I hope that the video was really helpful for you. So with that, I'm now going to dive into the next part of the video, which is really speaking about the injections and the retrieval day, as well as my recovery and what all that looked like with my experience. So once you've gotten your period and you notify the clinic that you've gotten your period, they will have you then come in to do testing to then confirm that you have the green light to start your injections that evening. And so before all of that happens, you will have all of your medications already, and a nurse will have gone through with you all the instructions for your medications. Now, the day that I went to pick up my medications, it really hit me that I was doing this. It was happening. I was going through with this, and they warned me in advance that if I had walked, to be prepared to carry a big box home if I wasn't driving. And I'm so glad they did that. Just to put into context, I actually still have the box. I saved it for the sake of this video. And it is, I'm just gonna hide my personal information on it, but it was a massive box of medication. And so when I picked up this box, I thought, holy cow, what have I just gotten myself into? This is no joke. And so that is the box. It is full of medication, some of which had to go in the fridge. And so it really hit me at that point, oh my gosh, like I'm really doing this. And it's a lot of meds. Some of them you have to mix, which I wasn't expecting. Some of the vials you have to mix like liquid with powder and shake it and all of this stuff. It's not just as simple as like, here are all your meds and you just inject them. No, like you have to sort of concoct and measure based on what instructions your doctor has given you. So that was really a wow moment to be like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Can I actually do this? And believe in yourself, because women are amazing and can do anything. And I'm very fortunate that needles don't bother me. So that was never a hurdle that I needed to overcome in this process, was needles, because thankfully I'm really good. The clinic did say that if you can't do them yourself or you don't have a partner to help you, you can obviously hire somebody to do it for you, but that can be very costly, but it is an option. I did it all by myself as I don't have a partner, and it was during the thick of COVID. So I didn't have a friend or family member to assist me. So I did it all myself, which I'm very proud of. But again, needles don't bother me. So I was very lucky. And so I was expecting to have around 10 days of injections, but for me and my body, everybody responds differently to the meds. So I actually had almost 14 days of injections, which included the trigger shots, which was a little bit longer than I was expecting, but that was my experience. And I will say that for me, the injections really weren't that bad. I would say by day 8 or 9, I started to get quite sore in my abdomen area, as that's where all of my injections were going. And I was starting to run out of real estate because you only have so much room in the area that you can inject yourself in around your abdomen to be giving yourself these injections. And so by like day 8 or 9, I was running out of real estate. Some of my areas were getting a bit bruised or a bit sore, which is all normal and nothing to be concerned about. So that's the only thing I will say, is that the injections were okay for the most part, except towards the end when your abdomen is just getting really tender from being poked for so many days, morning and night. I will say that the trigger shot, there were 3 different trigger shots, but the trigger shot that needs to be intramuscular was probably the hardest to do because of the angle of it having to go sort of above your butt in your back. And for those of you that don't like needles, I'm sorry if I'm being too graphic. I'm just trying to be honest, because I know I appreciated how honest and candid people were in their videos that I watched. So it was hard to do by myself. The angle was very hard. I kind of had to do it in a mirror. The needle was huge, the biggest one out of any of them. And it was just a lot more sore because it was going into a muscle versus you doing it in your abdomen like all the other shots. So that's one thing I will say. And some of the injections were just a bit stingy and burning when they went in. But that stinging and burning lasts for maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds, and then it would go away. And I'm lucky that my nurse that walked me through all my medications did warn me of that ahead of time so that I wasn't freaking out that something was wrong. But I know some women on here, the videos I've watched, have said like their stinging was like unbearable. It was really bad. I would say it was pretty uncomfortable, but it only lasted like 10 seconds. Also, in my experience, around day 3, I started to feel extremely bloated and I had so much abdominal tightness. It just felt like my insides were expanding with nowhere to go. It was the most unbearable, uncomfortable feeling, to the point that I was very worried something was wrong. I was on watch for, I think it's ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, OHSS. I was on watch for that, as I was a candidate to possibly have that be a problem. So I was just very nervous something was wrong, but my doctors assured me like nothing is wrong. Try and have a high sodium diet to help with the bloating. And thankfully, after like that awful night on day 3 that I just felt like so much abdominal tightness, it actually did subside and get a bit better throughout the rest of the 14 days, because I was very nervous that if I was experiencing this at day 3, like how would I feel at day 10? But I don't know what it was about that sort of day 3, but thankfully the bloating kind of subsided. And then towards the end, it was pretty uncomfortable again, I must say, but nothing that was not manageable. It was just uncomfortable. So then on to the retrieval day. So for the retrieval day, I was so nervous. And looking back, I was so nervous for absolutely no reason at all. I look back and think, why did I put myself through like so much stress and anxiety thinking about this procedure and this day? It was a total breeze. I was given sort of Versed and fentanyl, and I was out like a light for the whole thing. There was absolutely zero pain. I barely remember any of it. And I can't believe how worked up I got being so nervous about the retrieval day. It was such a breeze. So if you are going through this and you are stressing about your retrieval day, please do not be stressed. Your anesthetist and your doctors will sort of keep you comfortable. And it's obviously totally normal to be nervous, but the whole team was incredible. And I just felt like I was in such good hands. And I cannot believe how many nights I kept myself sort of awake, stressing about the retrieval day. It was such a breeze, like the easiest part of the whole experience. Again, that was for me personally. I was out like a light. So it was amazing. Then going into my recovery process. So for me, I was told that I may have a bit of a longer recovery just based on my follicles in my body. So again, this is going to vary from person to person. But I was told that I would probably have a few days sort of on the couch with a bit of discomfort. For me, my recovery did take a little bit longer than I thought. It probably took about 5-ish days before I was feeling back to normal. And I am so grateful that I have a job that doesn't require me to be standing on my feet for 8 hours a day, because if that was the case, I would have had to have taken like a week off after the retrieval, only because I could not stand up straight, probably until about like 4 or 5 days after my retrieval. So I just wanted to put that in this video because I was told it would just be about a few days and I'd be like good back up on my feet. But I was so sore. To put an analogy to it, I kind of felt like I had done an extremely intense ab workout. You know how after you do an ab workout, like you feel really sore, your abs feel really sore? That's kind of what it felt like for days. But it was so bad that like it was a lot of effort to talk and to like fully take deep breaths and breathe and stand up straight using sort of your diaphragm with good posture and those core muscles. So that's why standing was so challenging and walking. So that's the only thing I will say. It was all very manageable. They gave me stronger pain meds. I didn't need them. I just took Tylenol, extra strength Tylenol, sort of round the clock. And I was okay. It wasn't like sharp shooting pains. It was just that really sore if you've done like an intense workout. That was my experience. I will say that they joke in your your post retrieval instructions that constipation it could be a thing. Very much a thing. Again, I don't know why I'm talking about this on the internet, but I just want to say to be mindful of that, as that is very real. It's a very real thing that women experience after going through this. And the other thing that I wasn't really expecting was how much it hurt to pee for days. Again, I think it's just because your bladder is a muscle that's sort of in that same area. Like, it's just my entire abdomen was so sore. So anytime I had to pee and that muscle was contracting, it was just really uncomfortable. It wasn't unbearable. It was just very uncomfortable to pee. And that, again, I'm looking at my notes here, went on for about like 3 to 4 days after my retrieval. It was just very sore in my stomach to pee. So I just want to put that in there. Again, I can't believe I'm putting this on the internet, but I appreciate other women that have been very candid on the internet. So I'm trying to do the same. So that really was my sort of recovery experience. My period came about a week later and it was a lot heavier than usual, which again is very normal. That was my experience. So really the retrieval day, the recovery, it was a pretty seamless experience. And I'm just so grateful that I, at this point in my life, only had to do it once, because it can be a lot physically, mentally, emotionally for women that have to do this many, many times. And I don't take that for granted for 1 second. That for right now, it was just one round for me personally. And so with that, I'm now going to go into the sort of top 10 things I wish I knew before undergoing this egg retrieval experience, and hope that it helps you all in your journeys as well. So the first thing is that diagnostic testing exists. I want to scream this from the rooftops. I tell every woman in my life that diagnostic testing exists and how sort of straightforward it is for you to get blood work and ultrasound done to really have a better understanding of what is happening inside of your body. And I feel like as a woman, that's extremely important. And I want to normalize diagnostic testing as much as I can, because I think it's amazing that this science exists. And I think family planning and women having options is so important. So that's sort of my big thing that I wish I had known years and years ago, but that's okay, better late than never. And I just want women to know that diagnostic testing is an option. There is a way for you to know what is your sort of likelihood of being able to conceive naturally. Even if you're not ready to conceive yet, you have those testing options available. Number 2 is that your meds, some of your meds have to go in the fridge. So I mentioned this earlier, that the big box that I showed, all those meds go in the fridge. And so the reason why I am putting this in this video is because when I picked up my box of medications, I didn't realize that some of my meds had to go in the fridge. And I was actually on my way to work. So I had to hide all my meds in my lunch bag at work in the fridge. So I just want to put that out there, that if you're not in a situation where you can hide your meds in your work fridge and you don't want your coworkers knowing that you're undergoing IVF, then when you're picking up your meds, know that you have to come home to put some of them in the fridge before you go to work. The third is that your retrieval date can get pushed back. So something that I either wasn't told or don't recall being told was that your retrieval date, when you are booked, it is only an estimate. And depending on how your body responds to meds, you may need to be on injections for more days than anticipated. And so for me, my retrieval date was moved 4 times. 4 times. And it's one of those things you just have to take it day by day. I would get a call on Sunday saying, nope, your retrieval's not on a Monday. And then I would get the call on Monday saying it's not going to be on Monday. We'll move it to to Wednesday, and then I get the call on Tuesday saying it's not going to be tomorrow, it's going to be Thursday. So just keep that in mind. And I hope that you have a supportive manager at work that's going to be accommodating, because it's impossible to really book time off when it's such a moving target. And I really wasn't expecting that. In my head, I had my retrieval date, and I really thought that was going to be the date, and I'd have a few days to recover, and then I'd be back and at it again. And that just wasn't the case. My retrieval was supposed to be on a Monday. It ended up being on a Thursday. So it got moved like 3 or 4 times, I believe. And that's just the way it is, because everybody's body is different, and you really just have to take it day by day. So just go into it knowing that can be the case. So number 4 kind of ties back into what I said about your retrieval date being pushed back, is that you may run out of meds and need to get more daily. So what they send you home with is usually around 10 days worth of medication. But should you need more, you have to go out and get more. But they're not going to give you sort of 4 days more, because they don't know that you may need 4 days more. So again, it can be a lot of back and forth with you having to get more meds sort of every day if your body's still not ready yet to do your retrieval. So I kept having to go back and forth and get meds, I think for 2 or 3 extra days, which I wasn't really expecting. So just again, anticipate that you just have to sort of let your body do its thing, and there's nothing really more that you can do, and just take it one day at a time, and know that you may need to be sort of running back and forth every day to get more meds if you run out of the supply that your clinic has given you. Number 5 is to be mindful of stat holidays and pharmacy hours. So without diving too deep into sort of my personal situation, I ended up finding myself in a bit of a pickle on a statutory holiday, and a pharmacy closing early, and my fertility clinic also being closed. So just be mindful. Everything all worked out in the end. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, but just be mindful that if you are undergoing sort of injections over a statutory holiday, just make sure that you have the meds that you need, or that you know what pharmacy is going to be open, or if they're closing early. I'll leave it at that. So statutory holidays, just be prepared, be mindful. Number 6 is that this experience can at times feel a little isolating. And I say that because you can feel a little off with all of the hormones that you're injecting into your body. So that in itself can make you feel a little not yourself. But I also think it can be quite an isolating experience, because it is something quite personal. I know for me, I really didn't share with many people at all that I was going through this. It just wasn't something that I was comfortable doing at the time. I now that I've gone through it, I'm much more open, and now I'm opening up my story to the whole world to watch on YouTube. But after I'd gone through it, I did open up to more people in my life around me that I had done this procedure. But while I was going through it, I really didn't share with many people what I was going through. And so that can be isolating. And for those who did know that I was going through it, I think it was new for them as well. And depending on who you tell, if they haven't had anybody in their life go through this, they may not necessarily know how to be supportive, whether you want to talk about it or you don't. I think some people don't necessarily realize like how grueling the injections can be, especially if you're on sort of day 13 or 14 of injections, and your retrieval date keeps getting moved. So then people don't really know when your retrieval date is going to be if you don't tell them to sort of check in and see if you're doing okay. And so for that, I think the whole experience was quite isolating. I also think that because it was in the middle of COVID, that in itself was an isolating experience, because you have to go into the clinic by yourself. Nobody can come to your appointments with you. Even for my retrieval day, my mom couldn't come up with me to drop me off. Like, I had to go up myself. She of course had to come in to get me afterwards, because they can't just like kick you on the curb after you've had a major procedure with drugs. So all of that, I would say, can be quite isolating. I really feel for partners that are going through IVF who can't go into the clinic together. I'm hoping that we're coming out of the other side of that now with COVID, and that couples can go in together. I just can't imagine not having your partner by your side when you're undergoing something like IVF, but challenging times with the pandemic. And so I just think overall the experience was a little bit isolating to no one's fault. It just can be how it is sometimes, and that's okay. My 7th point is that the whole experience can be quite draining and emotionally tolling, especially towards the end. I would say by day 10, 11 of undergoing injections, I sort of had a mini meltdown. I just wanted it to be over, and that's okay. Again, you're pumping your body with hormones. It's okay to be a little emotional. And so just cut yourself some slack, be gracious to yourself, and be proud of yourself. It's quite an experience. And so I will say towards the end, I was pretty drained. I was sore, and I was just sort of had enough. My point number 8 is that you may not remember speaking to your doctor after your egg retrieval. I wasn't expecting to be that out of it. My doctor came and spoke to me twice after my egg retrieval, and I don't remember any of it until they called me hours later to ask how I was doing once I was home. And they laughed because they were like, yeah, like she came and spoke to you like twice. Like, do you remember any of it? And so just know going into it that if you have any final words to say to your doctor before you go under, say them before your retrieval and not after, because I don't remember any of it. And I remember saying, did I even say thank you? Like, I didn't even get to thank her. And the nurses were laughing and were like, you thanked her. Like, you thanked her multiple times. And I don't remember any of it. Of course, you have a follow-up call with your doctor later, so it's not a big deal. But just know after your retrieval, you may not remember anything when you're sort of coming out of it after your meds. My 9th point is that don't spend your money buying cute socks, because you end up wearing surgical booties anyways, and nobody's gonna see your cute socks. So I bought these adorable socks because they said that you needed to wear socks during your procedure, from Amazon, that say Lucky Retrieval socks on the feet. How adorable, because any excuse to buy an outfit for any occasion, I'm like all for it. So I got these socks, and it was a total waste because I ended up having to put surgical booties on anyway, so then nobody saw my cute socks. So I just wanted to add that bit in there for a bit of sense of humor, that you can still wear them and know that they're on, but don't think that anybody's going to notice or see them, because your surgical booties are going to cover the socks. My 10th and final point is how many more days my recovery took. I really wasn't expecting for it to take like a full 5-ish days before I kind of felt back to normal. I was expecting just a few days and I'd be like, boom, back in action on my feet. But really, I didn't feel like myself again until probably like the 6th day after my retrieval, where I could like jog again. I mean, I don't jog, but like hopping on like a bike or walking like for an extended period of time, standing up straight and like feeling normal again in the sort of abdominal area. So that is my last point that I kind of wish I knew. Thankfully, like I said, I didn't need to book a week off of work, because I was able to work from home at the comfort of my own couch or at my kitchen island. But if you have a job where you have to be on your feet, I was not ready to be on my feet again for like a full day, probably until about the 6th day. Anyway, so that wraps up this video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I really hope that it was informative and helpful for any of you that are just curious about the process or going through the process yourselves. I will disclaim for the 10th time in this video that I am not a doctor. This is my personal experience and my story. So please seek advice from a fertility doctor if you have any other questions. Women are warriors. I have so much respect for women that have to undergo IVF, that have to do multiple rounds of egg retrievals. I thought I appreciated how draining it is emotionally, mentally, physically before going through this, but now that I've gone through it, and only once, and not even the full IVF, just to the egg retrieval, I just commend women that have to go through this over and over and over again. And couples too, because it's obviously a lot for males as well, but women are just incredible, and my hat and my hearts go out to women that are going through this. So thank you all so much for watching. I really hope that this video was helpful and also just contributes to normalizing a conversation around fertility. So with that, I'm wishing you all a wonderful rest of your day, and take care. Bye.